was great. 1 second. Do I? Yeah, it's actually on the website. We're going to have them up in a little bit. I was up all night playing with badges, so I haven't had time to set other equipment out. Pardon? Oh, from a la War Games, the dead short from the carbon microphone to the frame. I haven't tried yet. That's the first time we took the plastic off of the handset, but we'll try it later on. I do have the key used to open it up, which is rather interesting too. So yeah, you good? What I find in there? The instruction manual and some screws. I tell you what, I've had all kinds of fun. I'm going to get off the stage and let Curtis do his thing. We went a little bit long, so I apologize. Hey, take your time, do whatever you want.
It's your con.
No, dude, it's your con.
It's their con.
It's their con. Hey, guys. Curtis, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Hey, guys. So I have no freaking idea why, but they really like to put me at the beginning of the con.
You're motivational.
I'm the Tony Robbins of HackerCONs. If you haven't seen my SkydogCONs talk before, you can go on YouTube and pick them up. Thanks to the gentleman there in the back, Mr. Iron Geek, has graciously recorded me on more than one occasion. And you'll know that I talk mostly about what I call the mostly hairless monkeys, which are you guys. I mention that every year. My first talk was about knowing where one's towel is and managing stressful situations. Last year I talked about how to lead change. How to find the things in your life that suck and make them different. And this year, I was sort of struggling for what I was going to talk about because some of the other research projects I've been working on really aren't finished yet. And I thought, you know what? I've had a really kind of strange path to where I am. And people might want to know about that. They might want to know about how they can take some of the things I've done and use it for their own success. So I've come up with this idea of what I call hacking your career. And I'll be honest, I'm honest every year. I didn't write all of this stuff. There's a slide at the end that shows my source material that I've stolen a lot of the ideas from or borrowed the ideas from in true open source hacker fashion. So if you want to go follow up on this stuff yourself, I suggest you do that. So the first question is how I got here. I have a degree in microbiology, but I am the Senior Security Program Manager for Mozilla. That's a pretty big gap. In between, I have a master's degree in management information systems because nobody would give a guy with a biology degree an IT job, even though I'd written code and managed computer systems and fixed computers for most of my life. I started programming when I was 7. My dad brought home an Apple II, and I started programming BASIC, and it's been an on and off relationship with computers with that biology thing sort of in the middle there. And I got really lucky. Microsoft came along and hired me to work in not the best job in the world. I literally was answering the phones. I was third-tier support. It was a really fun job, and I learned a ton. Part of what we're going to talk about is how I got from there to other places. But I also ended up in their very first security support team. I ended up in the beginnings of their malware analysis team. And from there, I went on to work at a healthcare company as a security, let's see, what was my title there? I was a technical architect is what they called me. Basically, I was, check mark on a box to make sure they didn't get sued. And I ultimately turned that into a career at Mozilla, where I am now, where I'm the Senior Security Program Manager. And it's the best job I've ever had in the world. I would love everyone to be as happy as I am where I work, and that's part of the impetus, again, for this talk. So this is a map of sorts. But the reality is there are no maps. This is my map. This is how I got from A to B. There are lessons you can take from my map and apply to your life. But you can't just take my map and copy it. You're not going to go get a microbiology degree. You're not going to go get a master's info and then follow the same path. You can take pieces of my map and apply it to your life. And that's what this talk is really about, is encouraging you to take the lessons I've learned, apply them to your specific situation, and then use it to better yourself. And the very first thing I'm going to say is that. It's exhausting and boring to be mediocre. It's a lot of work to be mediocre. You might as well get really good at something. Find something you really like to do. Building hardware badges or software code or hacking systems, whatever the hell it is, get good at it. Spend time doing what that thing is. And it's going to take a lot of practice. It's not just going to happen immediately. these sorts of changes that you might want to make in your career and your life are going to take time. A great example of that is when I was at the healthcare company, the job was really not that stressful for me. I was a check mark on a box, so they really didn't want me to do anything. They just wanted to be able to sign off and say, yeah, we've got one of these guys. We comply to whatever. I spent that 4 years reading books, teaching myself new programming ideas, teaching myself management skills, teaching myself negotiation skills, getting involved with local communities. I got involved with OWASP. I got involved with Louisville InfoSec. I expanded my network so that I could find a new job. But I had to go practice all this stuff. It wasn't just something I could magically be good at. I would literally sit at work and write code I was interested in. I would write little tools that I needed for my job to make it easier or better, or to help somebody else do their thing. Because my real job just wasn't that great. And I got really obsessive about it. When you get good at something and you start digging into it, it's one of those things that you will just start doing all the time. There's a reason a lot of us stay up really late at night, because we really like what we're working on. We're really interested in what we're working on. We've taken that obsession to a degree that we begin making that thing its own reward. It's become so enjoyable to be good at it and obsessed at it that it's becoming fun. It's always dangerous to turn the thing you love into your job, but that's also a great way to have a lot of fun at what you do. The other thing I would say you absolutely have to do is show and tell. I stood on this stage for the very first time 2 years ago at the very first SkydogCON, and it was the very first time I spoke at a conference. I'd done little things at work and presentations and things like that, but it was different to stand up in front of a group of my peers and give a presentation. I would encourage you to start doing that wherever you can. Find a local hacker group, find some small conference, find some place to start, but you have to share what you're doing. Because if you're not sharing it, you're not digging into deeper knowledge. You're not connecting with other people that can help you. Excuse me, I'm still getting over a allergy and bits from allergies and stuff. So you've got to get out there and show people what you're working on, tell them how it's going, get advice, and adapt. And then if you want something else, you have to ask. There are a lot of experts sitting in this room. I happen to be, I think I'm really lucky. I wouldn't call myself an expert. I think I know a fair amount about security program management. It's what I do. It's what I like. You got G-Mark over here who's an encryption guy. You want to know about encryption? Talk to G-Mark. You want to know about hardware badges? Talk to Red. You want to know about how to run a con? Go talk to Skydog. There's a lot of people in this room who've done interesting things. You've already been encouraged to mingle and get to know them. That's one of the best things you can do at one of these events. Ask people questions. Especially in this community, we are very accepting of new people who want to get involved in it and who ask interesting questions. We're not going to handhold you through every little tiny step of something. But if you've got a question about what we do or what we're working on or some area that we have some knowledge in, we're generally willing to share it. All you got to do is ask. A lot of times it's going to be the same at work. The worst thing they can do is tell you no. Hey, I'd really like to go to this training. Or, hey, can I spend a little money on a book? You may have to find a way to connect it to your current job to get them to pay for it. But a lot of times they're going to pay for it. I got previous employers to buy me development environments. I got them to buy me training books. I then use those to write the little tools I talked about. I connected it back to my job. But I was building a skill set by asking. It never hurts to ask. The worst they're going to say is no. And then if you really want it, go buy it yourself. Make an investment in yourself. You got to have a goal. Where do you want to go with this thing? What is it that you want to build? You've got to know enough about what your end state is to be able to get there. You've got to have a vision of what that end thing is. In X number amount of time, I want to accomplish Y. And I would suggest that you set yourself a good long-range goal and then break it up into smaller pieces that you can do, either 1 week at a time or 1 month at a time. But you got to have a goal, and you've got to be committed to yourself to get there. A great example of that is I talked last year about leading change. And I said I had a goal to lose weight. From last year to now, I've lost 15 pounds. I'm still losing weight. It's really unusual. Last year, I'd lost 25 pounds by the time I'd come back around to SkydogCON. I have a goal to lose another, let's see, it's 20, 15. I got 35 pounds more to go to get where I want to go. I changed my diet. I changed my workout schedule. I changed how I looked at life. Change is going to be part of this process. Sometimes that's scary, but you've got to set a goal and reach for it. And it's not going to come quickly. You can't expect to be successful overnight. You've got to set interim goals to get where you want to go. This one is a key one for me. And luckily, I learned this one really early on in my career. I was really nice to what we called admins at Microsoft. They were the people who got an hourly wage. They weren't salaried. They generally didn't get stock options. But they ordered all the computers. They ordered all of the equipment for your cubicle. They got to decide where you sat in the office. They got to decide who got goodies for things. They were the peons in the organization to everybody else. But I was nice to them. And I ended up getting a lot out of it. I got all kinds of freebie swag. I would, when there was leftover food from a meeting, I was one of the first that would get an invite to it. Hey, there's free food in this conference room that the directors didn't eat. Come have some. Oh, awesome, thanks. Heck, my wife and I even managed to get some very expensive wine from an event that didn't go off and the company had already paid for it. We took it home. It doesn't hurt to be nice to people. Those little people that you meet on the way up will support you as you get up higher, and you can help them up. And then you have an army of people who are willing to help you. You've got a network. Don't ever look down on somebody. You never know when you might be going back down and they're on top of you now. It helps to be nice to everybody. And it doesn't cost you anything to be nice. And you're going to fail. Fail a lot. That is my advice. Fail as often as you can. Failure is going to teach you about yourself. It's going to teach you about what you're good at. It's going to teach you about what you're not good at. It's going to help you discover where you are as a person. And fail fast if you possibly can. Speed matters when this stuff happens. I'm going to talk a little bit more about velocity a little later. And you're building yourself into a superior product. Whether we like it or not, it's a job market that's full of competition. You have to decide what is going to be superior about your product. That is you. What skill are you going to bring to the table? When I go into a job interview, the thing I'm always thinking about is, how can I convey to them what I am bringing to this? This isn't, we're always thinking about what can I get out of this job. You want to win that negotiation, because that's what it is in a job interview. You need to be thinking about what you can give to them that makes you an asset that they want you. Speed will be your only advantage. I said fail fast. Speed matters. You can't delay. You've got to understand why. You've got to try and get there first if you can with a new idea. You've got to try and get there as fast as you can for yourself. Every other advantage is incidental. We all know that the iPhone came first, and they're still huge on the market. First mover advantage matters, not just in products, but in people and in your skill set. And find a way to be distinct. There are 1,000, pen testers in the market. What makes you different as a pen tester? What are you offering that's different? What makes you unique that your customer wants that thing, or you're the employer? You want to move up the pile? Find a way to be distinct and stand out. Find a way to do it without stepping on your coworkers, and you've got a golden thing. That ties that be nice to everybody to this be distinct thing. We've got to compete. That doesn't mean I have to be an asshole about it. Because you want to be known. Because if you're not known, you're nothing. You're the numberless peon with the red stapler in the corner. You don't want to get moved to the basement. You've got to find a way to stand out with that distinctiveness. The main thing has to be the main thing. Whatever it is that you're going to make the priority has to be the priority as often as it can be. There's going to be times when you have to put it down and not make it a priority. Kid gets sick, accident, life changes, companies reorg, whatever that is. But once you move through that thing, you've got to get back to whatever your main thing is. What is your goal? Well, I want to change to be this kind of job. Well, if you want to get to that job or that career path, you've got to think about that. Think about that with your employer, too. What is it that what is the main thing that I bring to the table for them? What is it that's going to allow me to sit down at that negotiating table at the end of the day and ask for more money or ask for a different career thing? And one of the main things you always need to be thinking about in the back of your head is, how do I make my boss look good? Even if you don't like your boss, they're the person that can help elevate you. You've got to sometimes sort of take your ego and push it down and make them look good to get the buy-in from them to get where you want to go. I had to do that a lot. I had a boss who hated every idea that wasn't his. So I taught myself a little trick about how I would ask him questions or bring things up so he would think it was his idea just so I could go work on it. And then people would see me working on it, even though he was the, quote, idea guy. They saw me working on it, and so they were all coming to me for the expertise. So my main thing was making sure that I was having impact and visibility, but I had to get around that little roadblock of a boss. You've got to understand a lot of times your bosses. If you've got a really good boss, they're more than happy to give you the credit. Some bosses are going to want to steal their credit, and you've got to make sure that you know how that works. Because if they're in that mode and you're trying to make, get conflict there, you're not going to be able to get ahead with that. You make your own rain. This is a short version of saying you're going to have to give without expectation of return in a lot of times. Excuse me. It goes back to that, hey, what's my boss up to? But the good news is it always comes back to you. Whatever you're putting out there to make better is going to come back to you. People are going to notice that you're the expert, even if your boss is trying to stymie that or other people are trying to quash on it. They're going to see your name on the stuff at some point, or they're going to see you working on it. And that's an important part of it because you make your own luck. You're the one who decides how this happens. Your boss isn't going to magically move you up. Your director isn't going to come suddenly pluck you out of your cube and make you a vice president. It doesn't work that way. Luck is what happens when your preparation meets an opportunity. I spent a lot of time learning those skills I wanted to learn in that 4 years. And then all of a sudden, that job at Mozilla popped up. Their very first security program manager. And I had built the skills of program management, security knowledge, understanding software development life cycles, so that when that job opened, I was ready to reach out and grab that brass ring. You're going to have to build the skills and wait sometimes. But you make your luck. And you got to be smart enough to understand when luck comes along. Occasionally in a job, something's going to change and you're going to get lucky enough to do something different. That happened to me again during that period at the healthcare company. They needed someone to teach secure coding. And none of the developers wanted to do it. None of the development managers wanted to do it. They wanted it done. I said, fine, I'll do it. Again, presentation skills, went and pulled down some stuff, taught it to myself, figured out how to do it, and then gave it. And then I became the security guy. I was the go-to guy. They flew me all over the country to teach the developers this stuff. So I got to have a really fun ride on the company dime while doing something useful and meaningful that I enjoyed doing that helped other people. It was great. It was awesome. So recognize when there's that opportunity of luck and reach out and grab it. There are no rules. I'm telling you a lot of stuff here and saying, hey, remember this, remember that. There are no rules. Again, this is my map. You can steal from my map what belongs and makes sense to you, but it's my map at the end of the day. This isn't Dora the Explorer where the map comes out and talks to you and tells you which direction to go. That's really nice for the kids, but in the real world, that doesn't work. You're going to have to make your own rules as you go, and you're going to have to think big. This goes back to your goals. If you're not thinking big and you don't have goals, where the hell are you going? I mentioned Alice in Wonderland in my talk last year. There's, where she meets the Cheshire Cat, and that bears repeating here as well. She walks up to the cat and says, well, which path should I take? She's at a fork in the road. And the cat says, well, where do you want to go? She says, well, I don't really care. Well, then it doesn't matter which path you take. If you're not thinking big and getting your direction, then you're not really going anywhere. You're just sort of following a crowd or hanging out or hoping that, Providence is going to take care of you. That generally doesn't work. We all know the how. The how is what gets you in the door with the recruiter. The how is what gets a manager to do an interview. But if you understand the why people do what they do, in my case, I'm trying to understand that, that's what's turned into a career. If you understand why things happen a certain way, that's a place where you make yourself an expert. Why is always the key question. My kids hate this, that I flipped why back on them. My 11-year-old, well, why'd you do that? Well, blah. Well, why'd you do that? Well, because my friend did. Well, why'd he do that? Well, I don't know. And he gives up and he leaves. I just won the argument. I don't have to give my 11-year-old $5 to go get ice cream because I asked him why 3 times and he gave up. If you can ask why 5 times about something and get deep, you might actually understand the why. And when you understand the why, you have power and value in terms of knowledge. Understand the whys in the world. Why is this hooked up this way? Why did people build this thing this way? Why did we make that decision? Why are we doing this? Because if you understand the why, you got a career, but you've also got a path to make your way through some stuff. And we work in a technology area that is crazy. It changes so much. So if you can figure out the why on something new fast and learn it through failure, hop on the ride. You've got a place to go. It's going to take you interesting places. When I was at Microsoft, that's how the malware thing happened. I was, literally, I was on the security support team, and my boss trots over and says, well, we got this problem. I can't make this conference call with Dell, and they've got this issue with, adware, and their users are really ticked off, and we're paying for blah, blah, blah. Go help them. So I started working on adware. 6 months later, I'm in the malware analysis team. I'm literally sitting in a room with a bunch of VPs and directors, and they're trying to decide how much they're going to pay to buy some company to get the IP they want to build Microsoft's anti-malware solution. My title at the time is Security Support Engineer. I answer the phones for large corporations that have infections, or I'm helping them build out their Microsoft infrastructure. Why I'm in the room to talk about a $10 million deal, I don't know. I'm trying to hide in the corner and not get fired. Because as soon as somebody notices that I'm not titled, I'm screwed. But it was an interesting game to watch. I got really lucky on that ride. I recognized luck, and I got on something that was interesting and fun, and it turned into another job. And it was another job I didn't have to interview for. They just went, hey, you've got some expertise in this. Come here. I won't say I'm lucky enough to never have interviewed for a job. I do know there's a guy that some of this stuff is taken from. His name is Pascal Finette, and he's got a great video that I link that's, I've stolen some of the stuff from him. He's never interviewed for a job. His whole life has been a providence of, hey, I know this guy who works on this thing. We should go get him. Or, hey, this guy's really interesting. Do you want to come work for us? That's what this ride can do from time to time for you, if you recognize that it's there and take a chance on something new and something different. If you happen to have a degree, that's really nice. For a lot of companies, that's going to open the door. But your passion's what's going to make the opportunity. And honestly, at Mozilla, this is one of the things we try to get through people's heads. Like, I went and did a career fair not long ago at a major university in the U.S. that everyone would know if I named it. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to shame them right now. But I talked, in the 6 hours I stood in our booth and talked to students, I probably talked to 300 or 400 students. And there were 4 of us doing this. So you're looking at 1,200 students. Anybody want to guess how many resumes we took back to actually interview?
5.
How many?
5.
4. 4. Because I always started off with this one question. What do you want to work on? And if their answer was anything, thanks for playing. I want to know what you care about. Hey, I really want to work on video games. Hey, I'm really interested in graphics. Hey, I'm really interested in compilers. All I wanted was to see some passion for question number 1. And that's what we were all interviewing for. And that's the root thing at Mozilla. If you don't have passion about something, why do we want you to come work for us? We're small. We've got to be competing with guys like Google and Microsoft and Apple that are infinitely larger than we are in terms of resources and people. We've got to have the passion to win. Passion gets you a career. Passion gets you opportunities. Passion gets you the ability to stand up in front of people and make a goofy ball of yourself about the mostly hairless monkeys. I'm passionate about helping other people and understanding why they do what they do. And it builds a reputation. Build your reputation now. Find an unconference. Find a small conference like SkydogCON. There is no better way to get hired than being known as someone who knows something about something, or who cares about sharing and giving feedback about things. Okay? You can build your reputation immediately. You find some little group in your town that needs help. Find some group to join. Start a chapter of OWASP. It's free and open source. I'm a chapter leader in Louisville. If you don't have a chapter leader in your town and you're interested in web security, start a chapter. The chapter, the worldwide group will help you. There's money, there's resources, there's conferences. Just go do it. They're begging for it. There are a lot of ways to build that rep. You can build it on a blog. You can start twittering about something you're really interested in. Take that passion, turn it into a reputation. That reputation turns into careers and opportunity. I mentioned about getting on that ride. You've got to be mobile and flexible. Our industry changes really, really fast. I took a huge risk when I joined Mozilla. They really wanted me to move to California. And the economy was pretty crappy at the time. It was still early 2011 and the housing market wasn't moving. I was literally traveling to California 50% of my time. That was really hard to be away from my family 50% of every month. But now I work from home in my basement. I proved I could do the work remotely 50% of the time, which turned into more time, which turned into more time. I've been to California once this year. I've been really lucky that we've done stuff other places. I've gone to Paris for a week. I went to Belgium for 5 days. I've been to Toronto for a week. I went to Kansas West. I travel to fun stuff now. I was willing to take that risk. I was willing to be mobile, and I was willing to be flexible. And people will notice that and reward it. Because again, you're helping them achieve something they want and or look good. Take the risk. Maybe take a jump onto a remote team. There is no teammate in my state. My nearest teammate is a probably 8-hour car ride to New York or Philadelphia. My team is spread all over the world. We took a huge risk by having a security team that's not localized. But it works. The next big one is get a mentor. Someone in this room, someone at work, anyone who does the thing you want to do. At least try to get a mentor. Find 10 people who do something you're really interested in, write 20 questions, see if any of them bite. If none of them bite, get 10 more. If you really want a human mentor. I've had a mentor several times in my career, and it's really helped me get along. When I thought I really wanted to be a program manager, I got a mentor at Microsoft who was a program manager to teach me about program management. When I wanted to learn about coding, I sought out the best coder at the company I was working at, and I asked him every question I could possibly think of. But your mentor doesn't have to be a person. There's great books. There's great movies. You can learn a ton from movies. You know, if you want to learn about leadership, there's a bunch of movies that if you know how to find the little nuggets, you can learn leadership lessons from a lot of bits and pieces. Movies, books, blogs, they can be mentors too. And the reality is that everything can be your mentor. Your life, your failure, all the stuff that's around you is a mentor for what you want to do and where you want to go. The thing you have to be careful of with a human mentor, though, is my mentor wants me to do it his or her way. That's fine. Learn their way and then do it your way. Because their map is not your map, just like my map's not your map. When I say meaningful here, to do something meaningful, I'm talking about to you. It's cool if you can tie that into the world. I'm really lucky in that the thing I work on is meaningful to people all over the planet. Firefox is, thank you. We call our volunteers the Army of Awesome because they are. We have right around 900 paid staff, approaching 1,000. We have thousands of volunteers. They are way bigger than we are. They care a lot. Sometimes about crap I wish they'd shut up about. But that's life. Them yelling at us about moving their cheese or changing their tabs tells us they care about our product. Enough to write us an email. If your customers are angry enough to write you an email, at least be nice enough to respond and say thanks. They care. There's a great saying of the people who tell you that you're making mistakes or failing in life love you enough to tell you that and share that feedback. Accept it as the gift that it is. And when you can, like I said, I keep talking about Mozilla. Why? Because it's a place I get to grow, not just get paid. Yeah, I get a paycheck and they treat me really nice. I work for a not-for-profit that does amazing things. We don't care about our bottom line. We care about our manifesto. And if you can get that, where you found a place to grow, you found a golden place. Look for those opportunities, not just a paycheck. I worked as, again, that healthcare company thing. That's always where I go back to because I spent a huge amount of time being miserable and growing myself, and that was a seminal moment in my map for how I got hacking into my career. I learned about people. I learned how to deal with difficult bosses. I learned how to deal with difficult structures. I used that failure in my own way to build myself, and I found a place to grow. Sometimes they're not pretty places, but you can grow. The choices you make today are the biography you have tomorrow. And in many cases, the biology. I changed my diet. It is changing a lot about my life. It unfortunately is going to mean that in not too long I'm going to have to spend a lot of money on new clothes. But I'm kind of okay with that because it means that in 30 years I'm going to be standing around with my kids still. I'll be able to run with my grandkids and not need a knee replacement. My mother had both of her knees replaced. My dad's about to have one replaced. I love them dearly, but I don't want that. See your future. See your goal. See your career and hack it like you do any other system. Learn how it works. Figure out what the inputs are. Figure out where the outputs are. And then try different things. Fuzz those things. Ask, like I mentioned earlier, ask for what you want it to do. Ultimately, at the end of the day, your career is entirely what you make of it. You can choose to sit in a cubicle with your red stapler and grumble about what happens to you in the world. Or you can choose to look at that as an opportunity to mess with other people, which is what I tend to look at it as. I like to think that I'm something of a social engineer. People are fuzzable. People are testable. People can be hacked. They can be directed in the direction you want them to go. And you as much can hack yourself. You are the ultimate hacker of you. You know your inputs. You know your outputs. You know what you want to do. If you're not trying new things, then what the hell are you doing? Like I said, I'm kind of the Tony Robbins of this stuff. So, back to the change thing. Please, if you have questions about this stuff, let me know. I'm going to be here all weekend. I've got a lot of time left over here, partly because I would like to see the con get back on time because this is as much your time as it is my time. I will be here to answer questions, or you can ask them now of whatever you like. The source material is up there. I'll make sure this all gets on the web for you all. Like I said, Pascal Finat, really interesting guy, was at the early days of eBay in Germany. Christian Heilman is one of the technical evangelists for Mozilla, really interesting guy. Anybody seen Mythbusters? Make, Hack, Learn is Adam. He gave a great speech at a conference. If you've never heard of Seth Godin, great writer. He's got a great blog. He has a great Twitter account about finding your way through your passion and what you want to do in your life. And then the one on the bottom I didn't use a lot of, but I thought it was really good and I wanted to share it. If you want to reinvent yourself, go read that. That guy is given a really nice 5-year plan, which I think makes sense. If you're really going to change the whole person, that's probably how long it's going to take. But if you're just going to change bits and pieces, there are lessons you can steal from there. I will make sure all of this gets online somewhere where everybody can get at it. I know it's being recorded and it'll be up for the page as soon as we can. I'm happy to share this with anybody who wants it. I believe in open source because I believe it can change the world. I believe that people have the right to decide how they're going to communicate and in what ways and what data they're going to share. And getting online shouldn't mean sacrificing your privacy or security at any time. So I'm that lucky guy who has the job where his life and his passions and his abilities all meet. And it's really, really cool. And I hope that you all can find that for your careers as well. So questions, comments, smart remarks?
Yeah, when it comes to asking, like, here's a good example. I asked for my company to put the bill for SkydogCON. They said, why do you want to go to a HackerCON? So my just almost flippant response was, well, why not? I'm going to learn something. It was like, okay, you're going to come back and you're going to mess with us. Like, no, we're not going to. And I mean, they didn't put it like that, but it was like reading between the lines.
Right.
How would it, I haven't been to a few conferences, how would you convince your boss that you can get something of value out of this?
All right, so I'm going to repeat the question so it gets recorded. So his question is, how can you convince your boss that going to a HackerCon is of value for your job or of value for them? The answer to that is if you're working in computers or computer security, this is where the knowledge comes from. The other thing you can do with any conference, and this is how I got it to one employer who didn't want to, they had zero training budget. And I said, well, here's the deal. You send me, I'll take notes and I'll come back and I'll give a 1-hour class on everything I learned. So I'll share that knowledge with everybody in the office. I'll teach you what I learned. So now I became the teacher. So not only did I have to learn a little bit more about what I was doing, which gave me more skill, which I was cool with, but now I had this position as that as well. So you've got to find a way to phrase the question of, it's really cool that, hey, I'm going to learn something and come back. Try to find a way to apply that directly to what you're doing. I don't know exactly what your job is, but say you're a system administrator. Well, hey, there's going to be a free system administrators class for how to secure a system on Thursday. Or, hey, I work in network, I work on networks. Well, I want to know how to properly do the network so that, what these guys are doing isn't possible for us. I want to understand what my adversary is doing. That's the reality, is we're the good guys up here telling you what the really bad guys can do with this stuff. If you don't know what the really bad guys can do with this stuff, then you can't protect yourself. The other cool thing about SkydogCON is it's not just a HackerCon. I make it very clear to anybody who asks me that this is a MakerCon as much as it is a HackerCon, as much as it is social networking and me looking for talent for what we're doing. We have headcount. Skydog mentioned it. You're going to run into somebody who has headcount. We have headcount. We're looking for developers. We're looking for security people. We're looking for a lot of stuff. These conferences are a way to do that. So, if you know your company has a need for something, look through the list of talks. Say, hey, there's this really cool talk about this, and I know we have the X problem. I think this applies. I'll be happy to go to that, get that knowledge and bring it back. So the more you can find a way to tie it into your job, the easier it becomes to make that ask. Like, they thought I was crazy when I said, well, hey, I want these ASP.NET books, and I want this other book on workflow programming for .NET. Like, but you're the technical architect. Well, yeah, well, I don't really write code for the company, but I review code, so I got to understand how it works. So I'd really like these books. I explained how it would. Okay, then I had 3 books on my desk, and then I got Visual Studio, and then I was writing code again. I turned that in. You got to connect it. That's a big thing with the ask, at least at work. With people, it's not so hard. When I wrote my master's thesis, I thought I was going a little crazy, and I sent a letter to, oh crap, let's see if I can remember his name. He's a big open source Linux guy. He wrote a book called The Market and the Bazaar. No, he's got a regular, I can't remember his name now. But it was basically how open source and closed source compete. And my thesis was on hacker culture. And I sent this guy an email, total long shot, like, hey, I'm writing my master's thesis. I'd really like to interview you. Here's my thoughts, blah, 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 blah. A couple days go by. I don't get anything back. I figure it's either going to spam or he's ignoring me. And I get an email. Sure, love to talk to you. Okay, Stallman, Richard Stallman. The guy happily, he spent a few hours on the phone with me answering my questions. I sent emails to him asking questions. He wrote them back. Like, crap, all I did was ask. Same thing at Microsoft. I sent Bill Gates an email one day about something I was really ticked off about. He responded to me himself. Ask. The senior VP of Windows. So at the time, the senior VP of Windows, his name was Brian Valentine. And he started in the company very similar to the place I started. He started in Texas, in one of our phone centers doing some work. And he had risen to the level of VP of Windows. And so I got, again, one of those lucky providences. Finagled my way into working on the Windows XP beta. So my job was to help support our large beta customers like Intel and HP and Compaq at the time that were running this in test environments and needed help. So it was my job to do networking stuff with them. So I got an 8-week gig where they sent me to Seattle, and I worked with the engineers to dig into the code and all the new stuff, figure out how it worked, and basically just be a part of what was different up there on the Microsoft campus. And one of the things they did in the Windows division was every other Friday they held this thing they called a WIM, a Windows Informational Meeting. And what this was a reason to drink free beer and eat free food on a Friday and get a rah-rah speech from Brian. So Brian would come out and he would always end his speech with, developers write code, testers test code, PMs get the hell out of the way. Okay? About week 7, I finally got up the bravery to send him an email and said, Brian, you know, I hear you come from work. I'd really love to sit down with you and have lunch while I'm up here and pick your brain about how you got where you are. Because I don't want to do this forever. You know, it's a nice job, but this isn't a career. Answering, you know, helping customers is really cool, and, you know, maybe I'll get to be a tech lead someday, but this isn't really what I want to do. How'd you get where you are? And literally, like 5 minutes later, I got an email back, love to. Pick a date. Unfortunately, this was towards the end of the Windows XP stuff, so he was really busy with customers, and I had stuff to do too, and we couldn't find a lunch date. But he said, hey, the next whim, when I come off stage, find me, and I'll sit down with you. And he sat down with me for about an hour or two, and we sat in a little booth, and he was shooing people away, directors and other people who wanted his time, to have a solo beer with me so I could ask him questions about how I could make my career better. All because I asked. Asking gets you a whole hell of a lot in the world, believe it or not. You've just got to have the bravery to ask for it. I'm not the world's best expert on hacking or a whole lot of stuff, but I'm pretty sure I know some people who are. So if nothing else, I've built a network. That's what this is as well. Network with people. Figure out different ideas and different things. Your network isn't, you know, LinkedIn is okay, but this is your network. Cultivating relationships with other people and helping them with what they need help with will get you much further than anything else. A really long answer to a short question. You're well, if you want to throw out any other questions, you can ask me about Firefox, Mozilla, I don't really care. As long as it's not a security bug, I'm not going to.
What are your feelings? So I have a lot of people that go back and forth on the whole cert versus knowing, you know, education.
Right.
So can you maybe elaborate on what your feelings are, certs, education?
Yeah. So the question was, you know, what's my opinion on certs versus education versus experience? And I said it in the talk. A degree will often open the door. Cert is the same thing. A cert shows that you have some basic knowledge. I have a CISSP, but honestly, I deride it as often as I talk about it. And you'll know there's a really cool cert right here. Yeah, the Bollards. If you haven't gotten your Ballard certification, the man that runs the program's there in the back of the room. Get your Ballard certification. Certifications are interesting. They can at least show that you have some base knowledge about something. They don't show that you're an expert, and they don't show that you have passion. If you're going to get a cert, you better have some passion. I've met plenty of people that have 40 or 50 certs, but I wouldn't hire them in a heartbeat. They have no passion and they have no direction. They will open the doors for you many times to mediocre jobs for people who only care about certs. It's the same with degrees. I met a bunch of guys at Microsoft who wrote the kernel code, and they all had degrees in music. Not a single one of them had a degree in computer science. They were self-taught coders. Certs are nice. If you're trying to get a map of the landscape of an area that you want to move into, a cert's a great way to get a map. But once you've got your map, you've got to figure out what in that huge space you really care about. Where does your passion lie? Because that's what you'll focus on. So certs can be useful for opening doors to certain employers, like the government. The government loves cert programs. Certain large employers, you know, you got to have a bachelor's degree or whatever. Find a way to get one. You know, go to University of Phoenix or whatever, you know, online, whatever makes you happy to make that little roadblock fall down. There are enough employers that once you have the experience from playing that little game, that all that stuff becomes irrelevant. I'm at a point in my career now where certs don't matter anymore. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, and because of talks like this and my sharing my knowledge and proving that I actually have the experience helps. So certs, I would say, are helpful early on. Certs open doors like degrees, but certs aren't going to make your career. If you don't have passion about what you're going to do with it once you've got it, then who cares? It's just a piece of paper. Party on, Garth? Excellent. Car. Thanks, everybody.